As promised, we are right back with a panel discussion that's going to be bringing discussion on the changing landscape of fintech with cloud. Without any ado, allow me to warmly welcome our panelists. Could we please welcome Adelia Sara Castellano, the Managing Director in Solutions Global. Well, with her, we'll also have Mukund Venkatesh, the Managing Director, India from Gain Credit. Allow us to also welcome Sachin Chawla, the Country Manager and Head, Digital Native Business, AI SPL. Let's also welcome Shantanu Preetham, the CTO from PayU India. Allow us to also say hello to Shashank Kumar, co-founder, Razorpay. Well, with that, allow me to also introduce to you all the session moderator who would be spearheading the session, Mr. Vivek Belgavi, the partner and leader of Fintech PwC India is going to hold charge. Vivek, it's over to you.
Thank you so much, Shikha. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, my fellow panelists. Looking forward to an exciting conversation. I can see we have a diverse set of experiences on the table. The topic we picked up is a critical one. I was a little worried because both fintech and cloud on their own create so much excitement. If they really come together, I'm not sure what was going to happen. Now, this theme has been like in our broader thesis, the way we've been tracking fintech, we've identified it as a segment which really focuses on the underserved. And now that definition allows for a variety of players to work into it, and also a variety of customer segments, whether it's the whole Bharat segment, to the mass affluent, to the corporates, wherever we think we can drive consumption by creating those unique experiences, creating those specific products and value propositions is where we do think fintech industry prospers, so to speak. Around the same journey, in my experience, I worked both on the incumbent side as well as on the startup digital native businesses, and always felt the nuance of how a digital native business leverages cloud does get missed out in the popular discourse. And I hope we will be able to shed light on some of the nuances to this conversation. Sachin, let me start with you. In your role as the head of digital native business and also as part of a global organization, how would you characterize the trends of adoption of cloud by fintech in probably few points on how you're seeing the India market and contrast it a little bit with any view you might have on the global? Sachin?
Sure. Thanks, Vivek. Our last 2 years is definitely we've seen a rapid evolution and adoption of fintechs globally, as well as in India. India, if you see, we have I think more than 2,100 fintechs, and a lot of push from the government on digital India, the India stack, Aadhaar, UPI, and really innovative products by the fintechs have really pushed given the impetus to the adoption. COVID definitely also has accelerated the pace of adoption, and we've seen that massively happen across the globe. If I had to call out trends and I'm trying to draw parallels, though there are a number of things that's happening, but I'll put it in 4 buckets. Number one is we're seeing the emergence of these digital banks, the standalone digital banks across the globe, and defining their home in cloud and on AWS. So the challenger banks like the ones you see in UK, we have Starling Bank, Judo Bank in Australia, which is into lending space, or Chime in the US, which migrated to AWS. So there is this set, but as you know, RBI doesn't allow a totally digital bank in India, but you do have digital platforms who are offering similar services, and partnering with banks, and you have companies. Shashank is here, like Razorpay and Neo, and who are in this space. And for all of them, the proposition has been the flexibility to innovate, the operational resilience, scalability, security, and compliance. That you can do with cloud easily. I think the second one is AI and ML has really become mainstream. And for a variety of use cases. Let me pick a few of them. The first one is credit decision and underwriting. The models, the number of customers who've made models and they've stress tested it, and it's kind of matured now that, all this process is automated, and, your machine learning models are doing the decision of, underwriting and credit decisions. Take an example of Credit Vidya, one of our own, who they use a lot of our AI/ML solution to do the same. The second use case is fraud detection. We have customers like Coinbase, which is a digital wallet and the exchange platform for crypto. They use it for user identification. And then there are use cases like claim processing, or there can be a lot of client-facing experience like personalization, forecasting, customer interaction. Like Policy Bazaar uses, one of our solution, Poly, for text to speech for their customer, agents. So that's the second. Third, data analytics given. I think it's just happening everywhere. For fintechs, it's all the more tough because you have to get data from so many systems, portfolios, actuarials, risk management, third party, get them all together, process them. And we at AWS doing a lot of work. We created a new solution called FinSpace, which kind of removes the whole heavy lifting, from this whole process of generating data systems. And that's the third. And fourth, I would definitely say a lot of them are, using cloud because the security and compliance is so easier on the cloud. A number of industry certification accreditations, that are relevant, whether it is PCI DSS, the EU data protection, GDPR, SEC, FIPS, all of them are available on the cloud. And security, we have designed AWS to meet the requirements of military, global banks, and highly sensitive organizations. There are more than 200 services features available for you. So you can use access management tools to detect, using machine learning, detect anomalies, DDoS attacks, encryption, to just name a few. I think these are, so just to sum it up, I think the four areas, one is definitely emerging of these digital banks and platforms. Use of machine learning AI is mainstream. Data analytics, as I said, they're moving from siloed structures to data management systems. And the fourth is, security and compliance.
Super, Sachin. Couldn't have asked for a better the intro, or if you're setting the pace set for the conversation. Shashank, if I bring you in, Sachin mentioned Razorpay's journey. It has been a reference point in the way a business can evolve on both scale, complexity, and innovation. Coming from the way you have seen it from the ringside view, how would you characterize as relevance of cloud in the journey which a Razorpay has undertaken?
I think when we started in 2015, thankfully, the cloud technology, especially in India, had developed to a point that startups can start adopting it, right? The generation of companies that came before us, probably till like 2012, 13, there was no choice of adopting cloud at that point of time, especially given the regulations and technology maturity in India, right? So the companies like Flipkart and everyone else kind of set up their own data center and operations and technical excellence centers to drive that, right? See, the first advantage that cloud really gives you and gave us significantly is the speed of execution that is there. And speed is something that is really innate for our organization. And so that marriage works really well. The speed at which we can deploy things, at which we can get resources, launch products using cloud as a backbone, as the infrastructure backbone, has been tremendous. And not only that, beyond that also, right, as we have scaled 3 to 4x, 5x every year, there's a huge upfront cost that companies have to pay when going for a hosted infrastructure. While on the cloud, it's obviously like you can provision things in seconds, in minutes, and scale up, scale down. And I'll give you an example for, we have handled multiple IPLs, we have handled multiple Big Billion Day and other sale events, and um, you know, and for us, preparing for these things now, we have brought it down to the extent that we don't even have to worry about any kind of sale or any kind of festival events that are ongoing in the ecosystem. Like, our infrastructure is mature enough that we are able to take care of it by itself, right? And a lot of it has been thankfully has happened with the benefit of how much maturity and how much support cloud infrastructure has been able to provide. So not only is the speed a factor, and I'd say like the third part is on overall on the cost and technical expertise. It again helps in cutting down that requirement by a significant margin that is there, right? So the expertise that the larger organization, enterprise organizations acquire in years and building those teams and everything, I think that again, like, we gain significant advantage that even we can manage that even without not going through that journey that is there.
Super Shashank, I think brought up some critical points. Elasticity is sometimes simplified, but as we have seen it, whether it's a payments business or a credit business, there are points in time when suddenly there is a peak in activity. A client of mine was sharing of the whole Dream 11 phenomena, and to say, man, it's so difficult when suddenly some time of the day all the 5, 10, 12 rupee transactions start hitting you. So great point. Mukund, if I move on to you, you've been working on the credit value chain. There again, probably if I think through one of the design patterns of fintech, it has been to solve for cost to serve, and technology and capability both play an important role there. What have been your lessons in how cloud has enabled in a credit journey?
Yeah, I would echo everything that Shashank and Sachin said about the benefits of the cloud. We are a digital only lender. The benefits of that is that we can reach customers that you otherwise would not get access to because as more and more of the population comes online. I guess the only point I would add in addition to this, I mean, of course, for us, cloud is essential. There is no business without the cloud for us. What I've been really excited to see, somewhat akin to Shashank, we've been around since 2007, 8 when we had on-prem systems and then migrated everything towards the cloud. What I've been really excited to see in the last, say, three to 5 years has been the explosion of APIs and SaaS businesses that sit on top of the cloud that can further add value to our business. And it just drives further down the cost to serve. Especially during COVID, so many of our processes that were manual in nature, quickly we found a way to put them onto the cloud and automate more. And the beauty about that is not only does your cost structure come down, and we compressed our customer care cost by 50 to 75% overnight. What was amazing about it is the customers are excited for it too. So our CSATs went up about the same amount because customers also want to be digitally native and want to deal just with automated processes. And so seeing so many companies come alive that offer APIs, SaaS solutions that target certain processes to allow you to make better credit decisions. Very excited about the account aggregator framework that India has. In the UK where we operate, there's open banking. That has unleashed a whole variety of services that we can take advantage of so that we can better assess the credit worthiness of a customer and their affordability. And really at the end of the day, that's truly what we care about. We care about creating very strong good customer outcomes with lending and making sure that it's compliant and responsible. And cloud, because you're able to bring in all these innovations and bring in all this new data, and India's data ecosystem has improved as well significantly. That's very exciting. That means more reach, more access, more approvals, good customer outcomes.
And then the point which Sachin touched upon, the better underwriting or especially leveraging alternate data. You see all that playing out, or is a fair bit of hype?
No, absolutely, it's playing out. I mean, in the UK where we've operated, the credit report is deeply penetrated, and we mainly use that. Yeah. What I'm excited about, though, even in the UK, but especially in India, is there's so many other interesting data sets that are coming alive. Sachin mentioned Credit Vidya. They've got a variety of interesting data sets. I think, again, the account aggregator is going to open up the smartphone itself, the smartphone penetration and the data that's available in a responsible way, again, can open up some very interesting underwriting signals. It's still early days in India, I would say, but very, very excited for the potential.
And I'm glad you mentioned about APIs because we are tracking connected ecosystems as one next big thesis, and I will touch upon in the next segment of our conversation. Adelia, if I come to you, people have spoken about pandemic having its own impact, both positive and negative. How do you weigh that in the cloud adoption context?
Yeah, thanks, Vivek, and thanks for all of you for inviting me here. To tell you very honestly, pandemic and cloud, if you see the relationship, I think it has been a positive for cloud adoption, while pandemic had its own problems. And pandemic was not really India-centric, or it was not related to any particular country. It was global. So with that kind of a pandemic impact, where people had to deal with livelihoods, people had to deal with lives, and people had to deal with critical services. So for people like in solutions where we were formed in the year 2004, we definitely were moving towards cloud. We process about, and we always believed in the philosophy of assuring a transaction. So when you assure a transaction, you have to deal with a 360-degree problem of a transaction, the infrastructure, the domain, and the customer services, as well as your compliances. And we have been dealing with multiple countries and multiple geographies. And at the same time, you need to make sure that your SLAs are met and you're there dealing with people's money. With that kind of a challenging environment and the assurance, and you suddenly were faced with this pandemic, you had to face the banks, you had to face the critical services. And in India, especially when the lockdowns and that announcements were made, banking services were something that you had to keep going. You're dealing with people's money. It was as critical as the healthcare and the way doctors were managing the patients. So, in my opinion, three important factors impacted the cloud adoption. In fact, I would say cloud was a blessing during these difficult days. So, we had basically the service support. Next, you had to deal with the adoption that suddenly there was a boom and everybody started adopting digital transactions. And third was the mission and critical platforms where you are supposed to be providing 365 degrees 365 days, 24 by 7 services. We have to keep those platforms going. So, in my opinion, cloud perception changed at this time. People started saying how cloud and not why cloud. And that was a basic point I would say was in favor of the cloud adoption. And today, what we are discussing, and during the last 2 years, what we have done is, and the way we are discussing with our customers, is how are we going to ensure that most of our applications are on cloud? How are we going to reinvent ourselves? How are we going to make them agile? And how are we going to be cloud native? So we basically look at pandemic as a positive and cloud adoption as being absolutely a blessing.
Great points. I picked up another note, Adelia, which was when you mentioned you're formed in 2004, I thought there was a bit of shyness because
Yeah.
we've got so many young companies in the group. And I just realized that I would be part of probably the oldest company, right? So we are more than 100 years old. But there's other aspect of cloud, which is a great democratizer, right? So there is a lot of conversation happening in PwC on how do we do audits on cloud. How do we, so our great, one of the good success stories which we have done with AWS has been we are the largest GST processing entity right now in India. Around 20% of GST traffic goes through what we process. And it's a tech solution built again on AWS. So also the other factor which just occurred to me is such a great equalizer, if you may, right? So there is almost an equal access to technology for anyone who has, it doesn't matter what age of an organization that you are part of. Shantanu, to bring in the conversation, thank you for joining us. And you have to keep us honest. You are the deep technologists amongst the group here. Shashank, you might also be. I don't know, but I mean, you have you have transformed so much. One can't guess. But Shantanu, really seeing from a CT or a technologist lens, right? So we have currently talking about cloud as Mukund spoke about AI and ML. I touched upon APIs. But if you could like double click that, how do you look at what are those true technology capabilities that a cloud is empowering, if you may? And as a CTO, what would your advice be? How do you look at it?
So, first of all, thank you. And of course, Shashank is a great technologist. So the 2015 Razor Pay has come and we have seen amazing advancement of Razor Pay. So for sure. So I think say that irrespective of what we do, we are all engineers at heart. because that's what an engineer is. What we are, builders of the things. And I think in respective roles we play in organization, we all are builders. Actually, that's how I will term it. So,
Makes
but
sense. Yeah.
thank you, Vivek, for the kind words. So, some very fundamental things. I say that there is a lot of, at the time, this is a pretty good phrase, born in cloud native. But I would want to just tell very, there is echo happening here.
We can hear you well, Shantanu.
Yeah. So, very simple terms, like I want to just define like cloud native, what we exactly mean by saying cloud native. It's nothing but the whole idea of the every model which is there in the cloud, and how as organizations or how as engineers we build and run applications to take the advantage of this whole distributed computing offered by this cloud delivery model. So that's all is the nut and fundamental of a cloud native behavior. So basically the apps which we design for cloud native scenario, they are designed to build and to take the inherent advantage of scale, elasticity, resilience, and flexibility which a cloud provides. And that's where you hear the terms anywhere and everywhere that we operate at cloud scale. And this is what is a cloud scale is, that the inherent nature of the cloud, which is it is so elastic in nature, that whole concept of on demand, you grow your traffic. That is the beauty of this. Right. So that's where I wanted to talk about, being a cloud native behavior. And, it allows us to move fast. And Shashank also touched on that. At the same time, lets us remain absolutely agile and pure from a software engineering construct. If you ask me, Vivek, the whole life cycle of application development, right? Which is not only we have been hearing about REST services, microservices, they were there already existing earlier, but the whole life cycle management of how do you do a REST service development, and more than that, the management of it, which is the deployment life cycle, the ease of how your software services run and take advantage of cloud, and some of the things which have come, we all would have heard of, like a seamless deployment capability such as Kubernetes and Docker, which automates the whole deployment, scaling, and management of applications by using a concept called containerization. Then there is another thing which is coming very, very, fancy, and I will talk in the other section when we talk about it, is the uses of serverless functions and how as an engineering organization, we can take inherent benefit of the same. And last but not the least, again, when I'm talking about the life cycle management, Vivek, REST and API services, yes, we are seeing increasing adoption of microservices, which is nothing but REST and API services. You talked about open platforms, containers, Kubernetes. Everyone is realizing that there is a need to modernize. Everyone is understanding that we need to increase, not only modernize, how do we expedite the developer productivity, the agility and robustness of our applications, and drive the scalability. Now, at the same time, where the architecture of microservices allows us to create very simple, REST services, it adds to additional challenges and complexity, especially in our fintech segment of primarily security, the resilience of the network, and most important is 24/7 observability and monitoring, right? And that is where another thing in the cloud comes very, very handy to us, which is the cool innovative concept of service meshes, Vivek. And service meshes, what they are like at a an abstracted layer on top of the whole infra of the cloud, which allows companies like us or anyone to create the scalable services, but where the service mesh manage the whole common concerns of how to run a service, how to monitor, what will be your networking concerns, security. So what it means is our API engineers, API developers, can actually focus on, creating and managing application for the real business use case, instead of worrying about the whole nitty gritty and the last mile to address the challenges of the other constructs and other non-functional attribute of software as a service. So that's what I will sum it up.
Super point, Shantanu. I think it's such a complex area, but I think within that brief overview, you've given us a sense of where the competitive advantage could lie, right? It's not just a matter of using it, it's the whole orchestration, architecture, management, the whole hog, which really builds the differentiation. Fantastic points.
So the whole thing is just, it's a whole, that's where I said that it's a complete life cycle management, right? It is an end to end, everything coming together and in a very cohesive, beautiful story.
Super. I think I could almost sense poetry coming out after this, the amount of passion and love which was there. Let me just quickly segue to the second segment, and Shashank, I'll bring you in on this. Mukund touched upon APIs and ecosystems. One broader thesis we have been tracking is that a lot of financial services gets, whether it's fintech or broader financial services, does get benefited by digitization of the broader ecosystem. Now, there are businesses like yours and Shantanu's who have really done a reasonable work in terms of digitizing the ecosystems yourself. But I do think in this whole story, if the adjacent, whether it's an MSME ecosystem, agri, health, education, all these industry value chains, as they start getting digitized, it just makes the cost to serve or the plugging in of financial services a lot more easier. So if I pick up one segment, probably MSME or SMB, which is one of the focus segments where Razorpay has been playing, can you put some light into this phenomena of how the digitization has happened? What have you done about it? What more needs to be done? Would love to hear your thoughts.
Sure. See, India, has a huge MSME ecosystem, right? And I think all of us in this call obviously believe that technology itself can bring significant improvements to, to the life of the entrepreneur or for the business owner that is there, right? But uh, especially since pandemic, we all know like a lot of businesses are coming up online and using internet for the first time, especially for seeing how they can use leverage internet or leverage technology for running their business, right? But it's not obvious to most of these folks, right, as to how technology can help them, right? So one of the things that we really focus on, is on the onboarding experience of a customer that is there, right? And to the extreme that any customer who comes onto our platform, how can we enable them to do their first transaction, right? Be it first payment transaction or first payroll execution or their first online tax payment. How can we help them do it in less than a minute, less than few minutes? That is there, right? Because if they can do it in a short amount of time, they'll get a sense as to how powerful technology can be, right?
Yeah.
For us, for a typical business owner, it takes at least few hours, 6 to 7 hours, and conversation with their CA and everyone, let's say, to execute payroll. And after that, also they don't know if all the compliance filings have happened and they are accurate in nature. And it's a constant worry, right? But what it are, just it's just a small example, right? Like any entrepreneur who uses our payroll software and gets the delight of it out of it, that hey, within 10 to 15 minutes they're able to set up and pay their employees, and they don't have to worry about it. They don't have to talk to their CA. They don't have to talk to their finance person. Nothing at all. It creates an amazing delight experience. And then they're set on the path that they know that, okay, I need to find more such things that will help me in my life cycle that is there, right? So that is the first part, just the speed of onboarding and speed of doing the first transaction and creating that delightful experience that is there, right? And on the same lines, like when we started Razorpay, we used to activate merchant accounts, I think, in few weeks. So we brought it down from few months to few weeks at that point of time. And now the technology has helped us take it to a point where we are able to activate merchant accounts in real time. That is there. While for most of the financial incumbent banks and all, it still takes a lot of time, right? Second aspect that I would say is around that we have focused a lot, especially in last 2 years, is on fraud management and risk management. So I think earlier we used to do KYC, and we had two-factor authentication or OTP authentication at every touch point, and we used to rest easy that okay, this is helpful. But I think with the rise of digitization and a lot of new customers coming onward, we obviously don't want to break trust, even if, let's say, we are not at fault, right? But we obviously want to ensure that the people who are using technology have a positive experience, right? So we have invested significantly in ramping up our fraud infrastructure, and at the same time, I mean, fraudsters and all have also become sophisticated and want to play on the non-tech savviness of the users who are there, right? So we, in various ways, right, through AI, machine learning, through all kinds of rule engines, through image verification, text verification, everything, right? I think we have tried to get fraud detection to a level that we feel a lot more comfortable today. That yes, I mean, our platform is not being used by any fraudster, even though this is meant for a positive usage. We are not in any ways promoting bad usage that is there, right? And I think the third part that we are focusing a lot on is from a digitization perspective is on the education aspect for MSMEs, right? So most of them are obviously used to doing things in an offline manner with people, right? But we see that the power of education is really important. It not just builds a lot of brand loyalty because they don't know who can teach some of these things to them in this new age world, right? For a lot of them, it's a huge change, and it's an uncomfortable change as well, right? So we focus a lot on organizing workshops, organizing financial technology courses that are there, that will be helpful for them to understand, okay, like for me, if I'm running my business and I have to take care of various aspects, like how can I really leverage technology? And this is more of a high touch thing, but it still works great for us, and it's a lot of people really appreciate it when they're able to get that kind of knowledge, right? So I think sitting in Bangalore, Mumbai, I think obviously these things don't come to our notice, but you go to any even tier 2 cities and beyond, even tier 3 and all, these things become really apparent. And going beyond that, obviously, like you find a lot of people who are just buying their first smartphones, who are still learning and getting exposure to some of these things.
Great point. I want to move to the next segment on regulatory, but an open comment from anyone on the panel right now on any other examples on datafication which you think is good to share. All right. I'll probably share one very quickly. This happened through lockdown. The reason I'm sharing this, so there was a Navrata company which does primarily logistics. So their game is to work on market yards, and they go till Mandi level. And the government clearly wanted to create a more resiliency on availability of fresh fruits and vegetables. So they were incentivizing themselves to launch a cold storage chain at the last mile. Right? Now, they are not an organization which has worked till the last mile. So they were not sure how. So one of our teams got involved. They spoke to me. I said, we know of an agri-tech startup, which is giving both a tech platform as well as they have got a system which does mandi to farmer. They can come with the 2 lakh farmers as a pilot for it. And then there are lending fintechs who can be on board, who can fashion a lending journey through this. And then suddenly there was this organization which could partner with that and offer something which could ease out a potential availability of a tomato from which is grown in a Haryana to be available in, let's say, Madhya Pradesh. Tangible impact. The reason I bring that out is I see the excitement which happens in the digital first world, but so much of a business in India is there in the non-digitized world. So if you start digitizing some of them or linking them to digital rails, what unleashing is possible is just at a different scale than what we have seen right now. With that note, I just want to move to the next segment, which is on regulatory, and probably Adelia will bring you in. In your experience, you have worked a lot with your clients on the payment side and systems. And as soon as you work with a bank or an NBFC or a regulated entity, the scrutiny which comes from the regulator is just at the next level. So where do you think, and we heard good things about the security on cloud, but it's not just security, it is compliance and a lot of auditability, a lot of other things. So where do you think are the good spots where the technology or the theme has really helped, and where do you think are the areas that we still have to work on?
Yeah, so Vivek, to speak about regulatory, I think we need to respect the regulators. They are the ones who endorse the businesses, and I think all of us are in sync with that. The trust of the regulators and the trust of the customers is extremely important. Now, coming to cloud and the way we have understood the agility, the security is great. But at the same time, as solution providers, we also need to be equally responsible. We have our, if you look at the payment industry or if you look at the healthcare industry, each industry has got its own compliances. So we also have compliances which guide us. We need to, as responsible solution providers, be equally receptive that we need to be aligned with the cloud protocols and support the journey, because there is a lot of agility, scale, adoption, and as you say, operational efficiency that comes from cloud. They do have their own internal key management systems which are very efficient. To add to it, if as part of the entire journey as application and platform service providers providing turnkey assurance and with respect to governments and regulators and the trust of the consumers, we ourselves need to make sure that we look at the best practices, get in the controls in place, and if we are able to build and embed regulatory compliances as part of our culture, as part of our platform, I think 80 to 90% of the concerns of the industry would be addressed. So I
Sure.
would, yeah. So in short, I would say it's cloud would be supporting the operational efficiencies and regulatory compliances, and platform owners and solution providers would be equally benefiting by making regulatory compliances as part of their mantra, as part of their Bible, and embedding them as part of the journey and the
So
platform.
makes sense. But just to like nuance it further and invite few more participants to weigh in, I would think like one of the regulators' job is supervision. And from that lens, they do, and the trend they have been following is they have also been moving towards API to say whenever we want, we can go and check in, right? Now, if that kind of a super soup tech, if you may, I would think cloud could be very conducive.
Yes.
But then again, the same regulator is also a big fan of traceability, right? So they would want to start tracing every transaction to say what happened, who did what, and so on and so forth. And that's where all this cool stuff can suddenly become very complex, right? So it's in my view, a kind of a double-edged sword in its own right. But I'll invite a few other participants. Mukund, you've also seen regulatory. What's your view?
Yeah, we're very highly regulated in the UK, especially when you serve underserved customer segments with credit. Just echo entirely what Adelia said. Actually, your most important defense is your alignment with the regulator and with creating good customer outcomes, and having all your employees live and breathe that ethos, so that while cloud and all the different explosions of different SaaS offerings and data offerings kind of come to your engineers and your product owners to kind of create new experiences, those experiences are thought through a lens of the regulatory principles that are set forth for the country you're operating in, and the customer. Is this good for the customers? It's often very good for your own business model and for your own unit economics. The question is really, do you have those principles so embedded? Do you have the right checks, actually much more in your people processes and in the decisions your people make, as opposed to the cloud? The cloud is just making you work a lot more efficiently, a lot more innovation, a lot more services you can offer to your customers. It's just in fintech, you're dealing with people's money. And so you better treat it properly. And that's what the regulator is there for.
Yeah, good points. Shashank, Sachin, Shantanu, you come from very diverse point of views, but anything you want to add on to this segment of the conversation? Sachin, you're on mute, I think. No. It's cool. Why don't you take a minute, Shashank, Shantanu?
So, I think, as our business has grown and we have gone into more products, right? I think compliance requirements are obviously kept on increasing, right? And today, I think we handle anywhere between 8 to 9 audits or more, I think, every month. So at this point, the team is has gotten to a point where they're always some or the other audit is going on, and we are kind of complying to all the requirements that are there. So obviously, I think one thing I'm really grateful is that I think all the certifications that are there, like ISO, PCI, and SOC 1, SOC 2, and everything. I think there's definitely a lot of things that we need to do on our end, but there's a lot of things that we kind of offload to our cloud provider as well. Because if we had a proper data center, then the compliance effort will probably be like 3 to 4x of what we do today. That is there, and at the same time, I think kind of appreciative of how the kind of tooling that is available from cloud to identify certain things out of the box, like basic threat modeling, basic reports, some sort of reports available on the kind of security modules and everything that we have. So those things are obviously very helpful in in putting that structure together, and putting a very holistic compliance structure together, not just for the sake of compliance, but actually for the actual benefit of the business in terms of how mature our security posture is, or how comfortable we are in terms of the technical environment that we have, like all the touch points, all the areas where things can go wrong, right? Those are the cases where it's been
I have a feeling, Sachin, while you're on mute, I have a feeling Shashank said half the things you wanted to say.
Yeah. No, I'll just add one more thing is, I think Adele and Mukund put it well. At the end of the day, it is all, the controls are there, the services there, features there. You just need to put a good governance mechanism to make sure, it is aligned to the regulator and the customer, right? The feature set is wide and open, to be used. Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I'll do a small plug for PwC. We are trying to build, because we do a lot of internal audit and stat audits. So we are building our audit tech layer on cloud, coincidentally along with AWS as well, to see, like, again, you do not need us, you need to call a specific auditor. So we can say, I use PwC service and get the job done. We are running out of time. So last, probably we'll do a quick fire round across the table. We have heard about all cool things, but as I started saying, building a cloud native organization is not as simple as it seems. So it's a quick fire round because we are out of time. I'll go around the room. Probably start with you, Shantanu, on just quick couple of comments or top highlights on what does it take to build a cloud native organization. And probably if we take those bullet points coming across from everyone, we will have some semblance of an answer, I hope. Shantanu, if I start from you, what does it take?
So actually what it takes is just from an engineering perspective, if you see, I will talk from that angle. It is engineers with the mindset of, able to use open systems, engineers able to, focus on the core business capabilities, and at the same time delegate the other part of the management of infra and scale to the cloud. And that's where how quickly and we are upgrading our knowledge. I mentioned about some of the things: service meshes, Dockers, containers, Kubernetes, and this cool thing of the serverless functions as a service. So these are some of the areas I will say that engineers need to continuously keep on upgrading their knowledge. And more than that, the whole how our applications are designed, then we can continue to take inherent added on advantage of cloud day by day.
Super.
Instead of sitting back on the past advantage of pure benefits of cloud.
Super. Focus your work on value adding activities, hive off the routine activities onto automation, and keep on educating yourself and upgrading yourself. Great points. Mukund?
I'm going to just echo exactly what you said at the end, what both you and Shantanu said, which is the teams. I think the teams required of today to succeed in the cloud are very different from what they were maybe 6 months ago to a year ago. It's just moving so fast. There's so much innovation out there to grab. I feel that our engineers and our product owners have to be in this constant state of learning, improving, offloading, so that they can continue to attack the next valuable thing. Otherwise, I feel like we will become obsolete in a couple of years. So that probably keeps me up at night.
And you are the youngest organization here. Yeah, that's a pretty stark warning coming out there. Sachin?
Yeah, I'll add a different piece. I think it's a lot to do about the culture of innovation, right? And while there are various aspects of innovation talked about, one aspect which is often missed is the architecture of your organization. When you're working on cloud, you have to break the silos and work very differently. I'll just give you quick 3 things on. You talk about microservices. How do you design the org in a microservices fashion? You break it down to the lowest level. How do you have single-threaded owners with two pizza teams? Make this team smaller. You have a single-threaded owner. Give them autonomy to run fast, and have then these loosely coupled architectures, right? Like one team, two team, three team. They're loosely coupled, but they're moving at their own pace and making their own decisions. I think that's extremely, extremely important, other than the aspects of the culture and organization.
I understand that the cool term is the two pizza box teams, or is it one pizza box team, depending on how much money you have. Yeah. Adelia?
Yeah, so I think Sachin said it all. I believe in the culture of the organization. And to me, it's not only the engineering team and other teams, but your finance and your marketing, your HR, they're equally important. Ultimately, you need to be agile and you need to take full advantage of the cloud. And as a design principle in terms of the mission critical platforms, ISG has already done the reinvention. We can see the value that cloud is getting on the table. And my suggestion would be people should reinvent themselves and quickly adopt the technology. Look at how you can be agile and how you can unlock velocity. That's what I would like to say.
Super. Shashank, your last words.
Yeah, I'll probably just add to what the folks said. I think the mindset that we can do this, right, and the technology shouldn't be a blocker in terms of whatever objectives that you want to achieve, right? I think that mindset itself will enable a lot of cloud first benefit and focus that comes with it, right? And also the ability to say to handle unpredictable business environment that is there, right? So usually technology teams need to work from the perspective that okay, whatever unpredictability that is going to come, we know we'll figure out whatever architecture or technical infrastructure and things are going to be like. We know how to handle that to the pinpoint, and these things are something that obviously get enabled through a cloud first thinking itself by default.
Super. My final thought on there is again, like since I've been tracking this space for over 15 plus years now, we used to keep on saying business and technology need to be aligned. But I do think the lines have firmly got kind of blurred. It is tough to say who is technology and who is business, and it would have to work in a lot more synergistic fashion. Thank you so much, folks. We probably took a little bit more time than we thought, but it was a fantastic conversation. I hope our audience took a lot away from it. I really enjoyed engaging with all of you. Shikha, back to you.
Vivek, thank you very much. And of course, a very convivial discussion there. Panel, thank you so much for adding your key thoughts, especially when you talked about fintech with cloud. Thank you very much. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, very quickly, I'm going to be transiting into the next session, which will be the penultimate session for this track. It is a spotlight session. What is it all about? Yes, ideas, tech, innovation to scale the startup. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.